Ready,
What's
Christy?
your plan? You said you had a plan, Steve. What was it? Did you tell me the plan and I forgot already?
No, I didn't really tell you a plan.
Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you and your family cruise a little smarter. And I'd like to welcome back to the show all the way down in Florida. She is not on a cruise ship. She is actually home. She's getting ready for the holiday. She's got her tree up. She took her bats down. How are you doing today, Christy?
So much. I'm doing well. Do you know that I don't have a trip for like 4 months? Do you think I don't even have a flight booked right now? This might be the first time in 2 years.
Not going to last.
It's probably not.
Yeah, I know. I know I'm going to get a text from you or something like that. Or I'm going to just try and get a hold of you and it says, Christy is out of the office. She will be back in a week. She's on the Disney Dream or something like that. I don't know.
I wish. You never know.
So we have done a ton of podcasts about people like On Awake and I going by ourselves on a cruise. And well, you and Dave someday will get to go on a cruise again.
Without our son.
But
will that ever happen? I'm not sure.
It will happen
or
at some
people
point.
with older kids or no kids. My kid's 8. So it's just 8 practically can raise themselves at this point.
Well, we are bringing on a special guest today. I'm excited to bring her on. She actually sailed with younger kids, and we're going to get to talk about that. Because when you think about Disney, the iconic Disney cruise line is young families going aboard, going out to sea, adventuring, having a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And the little tiny, cute little baby faces or little kid faces doing fun stuff. And we get a lot of requests for actually doing shows about cruising Disney with younger kids. And it's just been a while since we've been able to do a trip report with one.
Exactly. So let's head up to Chicago and introduce our guest. How are you doing today, Jennifer?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
We're excited to have you. But before we jump into your Disney cruise, let's learn a little bit about you and your family. First of all, who went on this cruise? What makes up your family? And what is your Disney background?
Sure. So it was myself, my husband, John, and our 2 boys. Leo is 4.5 and Jack was a little over 2. We actually don't have much of a Disney background. So this was our second and third Disney cruise we're going to talk about today. Our first was in February 2019 when Leo was just a little under 2 and I was pregnant with Jack. Before that, I haven't been to the park since I was a teenager. And my husband hasn't been since he was like a young kid. So it's really just Disney Plus and getting reacquainted with our little kids.
And you have previous cruising history though, right?
Yes. So my husband and I cruised quite a bit before we had kids. So I was looking back at what we had done. And so I think we cruised 11 times before we had our kids, mostly on Celebrity and Princess. We did also do a couple Holland America cruises. So.
Okay. So premium, you guys are all about the premium cruise lines, which is, you're pretty consistently there. That's good. So then what made you think about taking a Disney cruise?
So we wanted to go somewhere when I was pregnant, but we weren't sure where to go. And we had already cruised with Leo twice on Celebrity. So we thought he was old enough to maybe like the characters and just check it out to see if it was something we wanted to keep doing when we had more kids and our kids were a little bit older. So it was kind of a test.
Did he like the characters?
He loved them, which I was not sure about, but like that, I think made it almost worth it right there.
So I'm going to ask you a question. How did Disney compared to Holland America and Celebrity in your mind, as far as once you made that transition and went on that first Disney cruise? Did you find it comparable food-wise, entertainment-wise, just for your family?
Yeah, so I think it's like almost non-comparable because, well, especially cruising with kids compared to cruising by ourselves. But obviously, like the ships are beautiful, the entertainment's amazing, the food is great, but the vibe is just so different. So yeah, it's hard to compare, especially since we were cruising with not kids to cruising with kids. But I will say that I think like the capacity on the Disney ships is kind of high compared, especially to Celebrity for sure. So we were like in like a little bit of shell shock on our first cruise. Also, we had always specifically cruised at like non-kid times. So we never cruised in the summer or around holidays before. And so just like having that many kids around was like very shocking.
I can definitely see that.
Yes. Even though we were there with our own kid, it was still very shocking. And I'm actually glad we kind of did it and like broke the ice a little bit before we had two that we were trying to navigate. Well, and then we were so lucky to be on low capacity cruises.
So I want to stick really quick because we have a lot to talk about. So I don't want to spend too much time on this, but so now that you've had a couple of cruises, a few cruises on Disney under your belt, you had the other cruises, obviously you cruised a lot. What do you think you'll cruise going forward with your family?
So we've been looking a lot at, since the restart, just the design. When I couldn't cruise, it was okay. But then once it restarted, it's like, I got to get out there and do it. So we've been researching Royal Caribbean and Carnival a ton, but I don't think for us, for little kids, that's really going to fit our needs. Our kids are too little to do a lot of the stuff that they offer. And I think their ships are too crowded, honestly, for what we're looking for. The other thing why I think we'll keep cruising Disney for a while right now is that everything is so geared to the family, especially dining. One of the things I like best about cruising is having a nice long dinner, and our kids will actually sit through it because there's stuff going on. It's not super quiet, all the little entertainment, and the servers are usually so great. So it gives us, even though we're with our kids, that opportunity to still have those nice long dinners. Something to do with your kids after dinner is something I don't think that any other cruise lines offer, especially little kids. We went to all the shows, our kids sat through them. And I don't think any other cruise line has any other evening entertainment that's geared towards little kids.
I think you're right. I think some of the shows would work, like when Celebrity has, or even the other cruise lines has their review type shows where they're just singing and dancing. That would entertain a child because they're looking at somebody perform. They don't fully understand what they're looking at anyway. So looking at somebody performs is entertainment. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense about evening entertainment and specific entertainment geared towards smaller children.
Yeah, what I never wanted to do was feel like we were just bouncing around, not having anything to do or anywhere to go, and just ending up hanging out in our cabin. And so that's the big draw. We keep being it's very expensive and we need to start looking at these other options. But then when I look at that and I think of some of the conveniences and things that we can do together as a family, I think it's a little bit unparalleled.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I will say for listeners, even for yourself one day, Royal Caribbean has some stuff. It has a nursery. I don't know what the current status is, but obviously Disney's nursery isn't running right now. So it has a nursery. It has a children's toy lending program, which is fantastic. Again, I don't know what the current status of that is. We would have to look into it if somebody was interested. But that toy lending, these toys look pristine. They look brand new. And then you don't have to bring as much and you just keep swapping out any toys you want through the week of your cruise. So that's awesome. They have specific toddler time programs for toddlers. So the parents can go and play on this mat with a bunch of toys specific for toddlers. So there are some things that if somebody with those younger kids, the 4 and under crowd, wants to do stuff with their kids and together, Royal will have some opportunities like that to do that. And then Carnival does have their daycare starts or childcare starts at 2. So their kids club at 2 or 2.5.
Yeah,
so,
I just saw that and was really surprised.
Yeah. And so that is an option as well. And I always recommend their newer ships for people, especially if they were going to come from a Royal Caribbean or a Disney cruise line. But they have some, there's some benefits to that as well. But you have to remember, and all of our listeners have to remember, Disney, like Princess, like Holland, like Celebrity, is a premium cruise line. It is not mass market. It is not the least expensive. It's going to have more inclusions, and it's just going to be that much nicer. Less plastic is the way I always describe it, because Carnival and Royal are real into things being plastic so they've been cleaned easier or something. I'm not entirely sure, but plastic galore. But so it is a different product, but like you said, you could save some money. So that is definitely something to consider. So
we did cruise Celebrity when Leo was a baby twice, and they did also in their kids club do the open houses where we could take him and go play. So that was really nice.
And Celebrity gives babies food and formula even, which is awesome that they provide that feature.
They used to do the formula. They stopped doing it right before we went.
Of course they did.
I should have been on a podcast when we cruised when he was 9 months old, because that was a feat.
Yeah. All right. So
as we transition and talk about these two cruises, Jennifer, what were some of your strategies as far as getting your two boys ready to cruise, as far as getting them excited so that they kind of know what's coming up and what they're going to get to do?
Sure. So my older son is a lot like me. And so he loves to watch the videos. And we looked back at all the pictures from his first cruise. Also, he's a huge Beauty and the Beast fan. So we knew we were going on the Dream, that he was going to be able to see that one. And then when we were going on the Fantasy, we knew we were going to see, well, we thought we were going to see Frozen and Aladdin, but we didn't get to see Aladdin on our sailing. So that was kind of sad, but really just kind of get them excited. Our littler guy would talk about going on Mickey's ship, but I don't know if he was just, I think he was just like mimicking what his older brother said. But we also, definitely got, some of our matching t-shirts all ready to go, and so all their Disney gear. So that was fun to get ready.
Well, how did your son, I know we haven't really talked about this, but how did your son feel about Beauty and the Beast?
Oh, he loved it. He likes Beauty and the Beast, as we call it, with real people a lot. But as I'll kind of talk about, he does probably some stuff that's like probably a little older than his age group, like the water slides at Pelican Plunge and stuff. So we were able to really do a lot of fun stuff with him this time.
That's awesome. I call it the kid cave. The kid cave like slowly opens up, kind of like the Cave of Wonders, and you get to do more things as your kids get older. Well,
it was amazing compared to cruising when he was a tiny guy. I was like, look at all this stuff you can do. We're getting so much more of our money's worth.
Well, you guys cruise on the Fantasy in October, so you get a Halloween on the High Seas, and then you again cruise on the Dream in November. So what I think we'll try and do is just kind of combine the two cruises as we talk about it together. So how did you guys pick these cruises? Did you plan these before COVID? Were these already on the books, or was this something that you booked once the sailing started again?
Yeah, we did not have these booked before COVID. We were not going to cruise. We were not going to cruise. And then just once it restarted, and listening to your guys' podcast, and I listened to Cruise Radio and all the other ones, and I was like, just couldn't help myself, basically. So we asked.
I know all about that.
Yeah. So we booked the Dream or the Fantasy cruise like 8 days before we went. Awesome. And I think the Dream cruise maybe like 2 weeks before we went. It was just like the right set of circumstances, with everybody having to be tested at the port and tested in advance, and listening to enough reviews that we actually thought we were going to feel comfortable when we got there. Because we've been pretty cautious. Our kids are tiny, still obviously nervous with them flying. Leo is a professional mask wearer, but Jack still has some work to do in that department. So they were very spur of the moment.
Let's just jump down to the port with a 2-year-old. How was the testing process for him? Sounds like Leo's pretty adventuresome, maybe a little bit beyond his age. So I'm guessing maybe that wasn't too much for him. But how about Jack as far as going through the process of testing him?
Yeah, it was a little traumatic. So we had tested at home. Obviously, we all tested just to make, before we got on an airplane, we want to make sure we all had a negative test. They were really great. So when we got there for our first cruise, we were the only car pulling up. So we didn't feel rushed at all. They were super nice. I wasn't sure if they were going to let us get out of the car or try to I'd seen a lot of YouTube videos with moms just turning around and doing the nose swab. And I was like, well, that's not going to work, because we're going to have to hold this kid down to get his test done. So yeah, it was a little traumatic, but he got it done. And our older son was fine and is kind of used to it by now.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Christy, but they'll actually do it for you, right? No,
we have to test our own. We have to take the test of our own kids. They stand there and advise you, which I absolutely love. I'm like, they're like, you've done this before. Yeah. Do you want the instructions? I'm like, please just give me the instructions again. I like having the instructions every time.
Yeah. And I sometimes people count down how long you do it for. And I kind of like that too. Mm-hmm. You're doing it right. I would hate to get an inconclusive test or something. So right. I probably do it longer than I need to, just to be we can only do this once. We can't do it again.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Okay. Now I know you really wanted to go to the West Coast and sail on the Wonder, but you find yourself on the East Coast sailing on the Dream and the Fantasy. So after you get through, and like all of us that are excited, once you get that email that says you're cleared to sail, what was it like for you and your family to step on those two ships? And was it different the second time, I guess?
I think it was equally as fun both times. It was actually so fun because the kids were getting really excited. And when they got on, and I think the little welcome show is so cute. And for the kids to get to see Mickey and Minnie right away.
And for the adults.
Yeah, it's very cute. It's so fun. So they were both singing and dancing and jumping on their little Mickey square circle that you have to stand on. And so those are kind of some of the moments where you're like, all right, I guess, maybe it is worth it. But yeah, it was great, especially when we got on the Fantasy, just to be back on a cruise ship. Having cruised so much, we really, really missed it. I just don't like any other kind of vacation quite as much as I like cruising. So my husband and I were both so excited. And one thing I wrote down that I really wanted to say was like the Fantasy was like gleaming. Like it could not have been cleaner, sparklier. Like it just was really impressive when we got on.
And was that the ship that you sailed before? I forgot now. Or was it
we sailed the Dream before.
Okay, so it was the Dream. So the first time on the Fantasy.
Yeah.
So similar ships, a little bit different in the adult areas. Let's go back just 1 second. And since you booked the Fantasy so late, 8 days prior, were you able to book time for the kids in the kids clubs that you wanted to do, or anything else? You went to Castaway Cay twice, so Port Adventures was probably not that important, but any adult dining or anything else?
Yeah, so we didn't book any time in the kids club. We didn't think we were going to use it, but I did. Actually, that's not true. I think we booked 2 times just in case, but we weren't like really planning on using them, but there was times available every day. And same for our Dream Cruise. There was lots of times available. And I did book for a time every day for our Dream Cruise that we didn't end up using, but I just wanted to have him just in case he wanted to go.
So did you not end up sending him to the kids club at all?
No, we didn't use the kids club at all. He's still a little nervous. And then I was a little nervous. Like, I think on one of the Fantasy cruises in between our cruises, some kids had gotten, one kid, I think, tested positive, and then the other families had to quarantine. And I was like, I'm not about that situation with my 2 toddlers. So we just decided to go to the open houses. And honestly, like, we were really busy doing everything else, and all the Castaway days were amazing. So
before we talk about all the fun activities you guys did during the cruise, what cabins did you book? Did you book the same cabin for both cruises?
We booked very similar cabins. We booked a family veranda, which was maybe a mistake because I loved it. And don't know if I want to go back to a regular room. It really did seem like absolutely massive, especially with having the 2 guys. We had enough room. We just kept the beds down because our younger son still naps, and we still had so much room. It was really amazing, but we'll see about budget in the future for that decision.
So did you have the family veranda both cruises?
Yeah. And we were on the 9th floor both times. My older son had kind of memorized the ship. So I thought he would really want to stay on the same floor. So we were just a couple cabins down on the second cruise. I will say though, I should have known better, but our first cabin was amazing, pretty close to the elevators, very quiet. Our second cabin was across from blank space on the floor plan, and it was really loud. It didn't bother my husband that much, but it really bothered me. It was like a mechanical, white noise, mechanical noise. And so I would not book across from blank space again, probably.
I wonder if that's one of the lifts bringing stuff up and down.
Yeah, my husband said maybe it was because we were mid aft. So he said maybe it was the funnel. I don't know, but it was just a constant humming kind of noise that kind of bugged me. Everyone else was fine, but I don't really like that kind of noise.
No, I totally understand that. As somebody that sleeps in a lot of hotel rooms. Was there any tips that you can offer families with younger kids as far as spending time in your room, as far as organizing things or things that you brought with that helped you?
Yeah. So one of the bigger changes that I did this time that I've never used before was packing cubes. What I did was all of Leo's clothes in one and all of Jack's clothes in one. And then I used the bigger packing cubes, one for each of them. And I just literally opened it up and plopped it in the drawer. So that saved a massive amount of unpacking time, because normally that takes a while and it's kind of stressful on a 4-day cruise to unpack and repack. Even though we still do it, it's not the same as unpacking for a nice long 7-day cruise. So we did that. We do not bring a lot of stuff with us. We don't really bring toys anymore. They each had like a little backpack with coloring and tablets and things like that. But we try to stay busy and out of the room and not really worry about toys and things like that. We did stop at the grocery store. Actually, we visited my grandparents in advance and they got us snacks. So we brought with to always have extra snacks. That's the one area I think Disney could do a little better on, especially since the buffet has like reduced hours now, is like there's not always like a ton of snacks available. So we made sure we just had enough food and for snacking emergencies and like being on excursions or on Castaway.
Yeah, because adults can eat a bag of Lay's potato chips, but not every 2 and 4-year-old for every snack is going to eat Lay's potato chips. And, that's the easiest grab and go snack that you can grab from the quick service. So that is a very good point. And I would say that just as a general rule, traveling with little kids, even at Walt Disney World, you can't find that many snacks that are just, the Cheerio type snacks, just the easy things they can put in their mouth and make a mess with.
Yeah, never be without food. That's my tip. But we also brought like these little like take and toss, like plastic cups and also these little bowls from Walmart. And in the morning, we would just cut up fruit at breakfast and make sure we had that, stick that in the fridge or bring that out with us too. So they weren't just always on like a constant diet of goldfish crackers. But yeah, I mean, tried to grab whatever we could at the buffet in the morning to kind of bring with us. I usually always pack a couple extra baggies or those little plastic containers so we can stock up on some stuff to have with us for the day.
That's a good tip.
And an amazing thing that I think I heard your wife mention, Steve, was those water bottle refillers. Like that's an amazing ad.
What now?
So the ones we saw were on the promenade deck, but on both sides of the ship, they have these water bottle refillers, which was amazing. Because always before it's like, now we got to track up to the buffet to get water. So that was like huge.
Yeah. So on the fourth deck, like the outside running deck, if you will, or walking deck, they have a drinking fountain and they have water bottle refill stations. And it's like nice, cool water. So
very good. Yeah. We I don't know. I think this is on all cruise ships. I know it's safe to drink, but I think the water from the sink and the bathroom tastes like a tiny bit weird. So I was really excited to see those.
And if you stay near the stairwell, like you did on the first one, at least you get your exercise in going up and down to get your water. So yeah,
I think that's maybe the other thing is we do take a stroller and we take like a collapsible travel stroller, but we've got our littlest guy likes to escape. So we like to have that with him. So I was actually kind of worried about that because we've always done the stairs. And I was like, how's like the elevators going to work? Are they going to be super crowded? And actually they really weren't. So I know it was low capacity and maybe a lot of other people were trying to take the stairs as well. So
before we leave the rooms and like things you brought, did the kids sleep in a pack and play? Well, or did the littler one, Jack, sleep in the pack and play? Or what did you guys do for sleeping arrangements for your 2 and 4-year-old?
No, so he was just kind of transitioning at home by his own decision, not by our decision to sleep in a bed. So he will not sleep in a pack and play, just climbs right out. So we went for the bed with the bed rail and our oldest slept on the bunk bed, which I was like a tiny bit nervous about, but he did great.
How did that work with like getting down to go to the bathroom or anything, like getting up in the morning? Like how did that work as a littler kid?
Yeah, so he didn't get up. Okay. And we actually had to trap him up there because we were afraid that our little guy would climb up the ladder in the middle of the night. So we had to put him up there and take the ladder away. So thankfully the ladders are removable and storable in the closet. The other thing I'd say is we practice showering with both of our kids because they do have the bathtubs, but that's great. But since they're small and on the family cabins, they're really just like a circle, like they're not as big. And oddly, the bathtub is not as big on the family cabins as it is in the regular cabins. I didn't really know that, but we always practice showering with our kids so that we can just throw them in there or we can throw them in the shower at Castaway if they're all sandy and stuff. So it's not like a total shock to the system. So they both just took showers the whole time. He did okay in the bed. He got up a little bit, but I think the curtain is huge. This is another thing. Like, why does every cruise ship cabin not have one of these curtains? I do not understand.
I know. And so for our listeners, what Jen is referring to is the curtain that separates the kids section of the cabin, the couch where the kids are going to sleep, and the main bed of the cabin. And that curtain is dark and it's thick. And so, you and your spouse can be playing on your iPads or sitting back there reading or watching a movie on your iPad or whatever. They're not constantly like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you watching? What are you doing? If you get to do something, can I get to do something? What is happening? The curtain is great.
They're very dark. And I feel like I could be imagining this, but like kind of noise dampening.
It is a serious curtain.
It is.
It really does a good job.
It's like a major factor in also continuing to sail with Disney because it really makes it comfortable for everybody to be in the same room.
Yeah, no, that is a great point. On my most recent cruise on the Independence of the Seas on Royal Caribbean, they have, and they do this to like make it look pretty, but the curtain is like 2 feet, 2.5 feet long. What, why? Now it's just a curtain in my way. It's not blocking anything. And it does nothing to help separate me from my child.
We actually, when we cruised with Leo and he was a baby, I had read this tip somewhere and we took a dark colored shower curtain with us and magnet, like, the cabinets magnetized or whatever, little hooks, and hung it up on our Celebrity cruise. Because if he could see us, there was no way he was going to sleep. And it was kind of a pain to pack, but really worked wonders. So if you cruise on non-Disney, bring a dark colored shower curtain with you.
That's a good idea.
I will tell you that as your kids get older, it works out the opposite way, where you and your husband may want to go to bed early while your kids are up, and that curtain works wonders to keep them over on their side of the room. If you can't afford the 2 cabins, which a lot of us can't, to separate it when they get older as well. Okay, well, let's move into food. We don't have the time to go into every single restaurant, but here's my 2 questions, I guess. Did you have a favorite restaurant? I've got 3 questions. Did you have a favorite restaurant? Did your kids have a favorite restaurant? And how did the food situation work with the kids?
So I think I'd say Animators or Royal. I would say Enchanted Garden is my least favorite. It's like my least favorite menu. It's like the least atmospheric. I think my son oddly said that was his favorite. I have no idea why.
Could it be though, because Mickey comes out now?
Maybe. So all the little shows were super cute. They're doing a lot of stuff that I think they definitely are going to have to keep. You can't take it away now once you've added all these cute little touches that everybody really likes. Yeah, some of our favorite stuff is actually one thing I wrote down to say is that the Pirate Night menu actually does not bother me as much as it bothers everybody else. I think there's a couple of good things on it. Like we like the crab cakes. The main entree offerings are just okay, but and there's a really good dessert on that menu too. That's like the macadamia nut cheesecake type thing. I heard somebody mention this recently. I also discovered this chocolate walnut cake. That is the best dessert I've ever had.
It is my favorite. It is naturally gluten-free.
Yeah.
Yes, if that's what you were going to say. Yeah. Yes, I eat it. And then I often actually just add it almost every night of the cruise. I'm just
it was so good. I should have thought to ask for it again. I was obsessed with it. Obviously the pasta per sets, like everybody says. We actually had really good beef on this cruise. We had beef a couple of times and it was really good and good quality, I thought. The kids did good. My kids are kind of picky eaters, so they definitely stuck to the kids menu. They definitely had cheeseburgers a couple nights that cheeseburgers were not on the menu. So our servers were nice and got those for us. On our fantasy cruise, on our first stream way back when, we actually had bad service. And it was kind of a bummer because it was you heard so much about it. Our waiter didn't really even want to bring our son's food first. And I was well, that's the whole point of being on Disney. So we got more than made up for it on our fantasy cruise, especially. Our servers couldn't do enough for us, couldn't do enough for the kids. It was amazing. We got to talk to them a bunch. So we really got the full experience. We also had very good service on the Dream, but we kind of had become attached to the first 2 guys. So we were you guys are good, but not as amazing. But yeah, no, everything with dining went great. Our kids did great through dinner. We are not ashamed to bust out the iPad at dinner. So don't be afraid to use it. they've been busy all day. Actually, our son, I've heard people say this before. Our son was so tired after one of our castaway days that he fell asleep at the dinner table. So yeah.
I think that's a rite of passage on a Disney ship. Our youngest son did the same thing in the first one as well. So
I literally could not believe it, but just overfund too hard. So
how was the pacing for the dinner too? So you brought the iPads in. For people that don't know, you can ask them to speed up or slow down the pacing, right, Christy?
Mm-hmm. Yes, you can.
Yeah, both of our service teams asked what we wanted, and we just said, kind of normal, but nothing too slow. On our second cruise, our serving team had us and 2 other big tables. So I was a little worried, but they were really great. And they actually brought all of our food first before they got to the bigger tables. So that really worked out nice for us. And they definitely brought the kids' food first and would pace it like however we wanted it to go. So that was really helpful. So they would, have something to eat right away. And then I felt like all the little shows came like a little bit later, which was kind of nice timing for us because it was like, okay, now you've eaten and now this entertained you for a little bit. And then now you can, have your iPad while we're kind of finishing up our dinner.
Do you have any other tips or tricks for people with younger kids then as far as dining goes with Disney or even on your other cruises?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just know your kid. So if it's going to be, you need to do it super fast or you need to bring really little toys or things with you, I'd say feel free to do it. What makes me feel good is I'm not saying your kid can get up and run around like a crazy person, but if your kid is not being silent, this is like a bonus to me is the atmosphere is lively. Everyone's talking, everyone's got kids. And so you don't have to feel so self-conscious about your kid being a loud talker or, maybe, getting up from the table or, whatever it is, or dropping their food or, you fit in a little bit better with kids. And I think we were really lucky. Our older son was a really great baby. So we did great at dining with him, but you get a lot of looks from people, especially when you've got little kids. And even on Disney, sometimes I feel like people are like, why do you bother bringing your toddlers? And I'm like, well, because it's for kids.
And it's fun.
Yeah. And we always traveled a ton. And so it's something we always wanted to do with our kids. So we knew we were going to make it happen one way or another. And this seems to be the best way for now.
And not to creep you out, but I see the Rick Steves books in the back. So I can tell you're a traveler.
Yes, we did a lot of Europe travel before we had kids. We did some great European cruises as well.
Well, this is really our kids travel so easy now. So having them do this while they're younger like this, they're just going to turn into great little travelers. And I know Blake's becoming that way too for you, Christy.
Yes. Let's not leave dining quite yet. So a couple of notes I made if you're traveling with little kids. So the 3 and under, sometimes 4 and under if they're really particular, but Disney has salad forks and they do have small teaspoons. But if your kid is still under 2 or needs baby size utensils, I would just recommend people bring their own. So if you need your own little baby fork or baby toddler fork or spoons or stuff like that, or a handle that's a little bit thicker so that they can grab them with their cute little pudgy hands, then I would recommend bringing your own. Disney will give you cups with a straw and a lid. So if you don't think that your kid is ready to drink out of a cup with a straw, then bring your own sippy cups and you can transfer whatever beverage you request into that cup for them. We used to bring a travel baby brush and travel soap and stuff like that so that we could clean the utensils in the sink in the cabin when we would cruise and we needed to bring that kind of stuff with us. So
we have a little portable drying rack from our cruising with bottles days because our son still takes a pacifier and we had sippy cups. So that was really helpful. I buy one of those little shampoo bottles in the travel section and fill it with dish soap. And one thing I will say is that those cups they have at dinner are amazing, but they do not have them anywhere else on the ship. So make sure you have sippy cups and things like that with you because they don't have them in the buffet and at the bars and stuff. If you get pop or whatever, you're not going to have a spill-proof lid available.
Good tips. And if you have kids like 2 and under, or maybe even 3 and under, sometimes they make disposable bibs that are amazing and save your clothes. And then you don't have to bother, because who wants to travel with the bib? And we can worry about the environment and other areas of our life, right? But so it's super easy, disposable bibs. You just throw them on. They can make their mess and spill their spaghetti all over it and not ruin their clothes. And then they can just toss that and you can use it for each of your meals. So that was something else that I used when my guy was littler.
Yes, we use those when our kids were littler, and like the placemats. We're fortunately can eat off of plates now, which was good for COVID times. But we've used those. Yeah, the plastic table mats that stick. We've used those a lot in the past.
Yeah, which is really nice too.
So let's turn to Christy's favorite thing when she gets on board. She loves to download the app, go through it, and cruise all the fun adventures she's going to have. So you guys didn't utilize the kids clubs at all in these 2 cruises. What were some of the things that you and your family, you found yourselves doing as a family?
Yes. So first I want to say Pro Paper Navigator, was devastated to learn I would no longer be getting a paper navigator. It was actually like, went on several rants to my husband about it. I didn't
See, Steve, we like paper.
I didn't hate the app as much as I thought I was going to hate it, but I think it like takes away part of the cruise experience. Sad when you get to your cabin, there's no navigator.
Mm-hmm. But other cruise lines have navigators that are in paper. Just saying, Disney, just saying.
So a couple of the things, so our Halloween on the High Seas cruise, we had the extra deck show, which was amazing. That's like, I think during COVID time, something we definitely missed was the sail away party, the pirates party, just like those, like the, dance parties they have in the atrium for the kids with the characters. So we really didn't miss all of those, but we kept busy tracking down as many characters as we could, which there were ample opportunities to do, which was fun. And it was actually so fun to see the characters all around the ship on all the different decks, which I don't know if they did before, but we never saw on our first cruise. We can do the splash pad. It's a little dicey if you're going to cruise with a toddler of this age who can see his siblings going in the pool, but can't go in the pool himself. We will probably hold off on taking any longer cruises for now, because we actually don't want sea days until everybody can go in the pool themselves. So we just tried to keep busy, but we did
I'll just interject really quick one more time. As a reminder for our listeners who might not know, diapered babies cannot go into the swimming pools on almost any cruise line. It needs to be water that can be like easily cleared out. So they have to have a dedicated splash pad or a dedicated splash area. So check that out before your cruise if your child is not potty trained yet.
Yes. So we did the splash pad and it's great. And it's really huge. So it does keep them busy for a while. But now that you can see your older brother going in, there was some issues there, but we did the Midship Detective Agency, which is amazing. And I did not know has different outcomes, because I was like, oh, you're going to do this twice and then you can never do it again. But actually it's a different villain every time. So we did that a lot. We did the kids open house every morning. So the kids could still go to the kids club and play on the Star Wars thing and run around in Andy's room and play on the magic floor. And so they have like a bunch of open house hours, especially on port days. And because of the reduced capacity, one side was almost always open for open house time. So we were able to go a bunch to do that, just to let them run around. We did the crafts, which on our first cruise, we didn't really do because I was like, our kids are going to be too little, but our kids were not too little. They're really for all ages. And even if your kids just color, they were pretty cute. Even there was mostly adults doing them, but we made these really cute, like inside out memory orbs, which were so cute, and door hangers and some other stuff. There's also a family game show called Sarge Says, which I didn't know what it was. There wasn't a description of it in the app. It is the cutest thing. It's like the army guys from Toy Story doing like an army version of Simon Says. And so the kids do all these different moves and they have this little skit going on and lasts like a half an hour. And then they give you a mission to find the missing blue crayon through the ship, which we did find, and then went back to Sarge Says again to tell the army guys about. And that was something that I was like, what is this? Like, because it doesn't give a description in the app, which they should use the app to give a description. So we did that, which was a very fun. Aqueduct a million times because of the reduced capacity. Obviously, we went to all the shows. I actually kind of have a soft spot for like I don't know what you call them, like the mixed shows, like the Believe and the Dreams, because you get to hear songs from so many different movies. My older son absolutely loved Believe. We were literally just singing one of the songs yesterday. And so we ended up seeing it 3 times over our course of our 2 cruises. Saw Frozen, saw Beauty and the Beast. We did make it to the fireworks one time. I don't know how we kept them up that late one night, but why are the fireworks so late at night? It's crazy.
It doesn't make sense either, because on the 3-night for my cruises, there were 2 fireworks shows, but on the 4-night, there was only one, and it was at like 10:30. It didn't make any sense to me. I agree completely, especially when it's dark at 6:00.
And honestly, even pre-kids, I'm struggling. I could maybe stay up a little later than you, Christy, but I would definitely not be staying up till 10:30 or 11 o'clock normally. So I would love to see that get earlier.
I wonder if it's because they have to close down so much of the deck up there.
So
yeah.
But again, they did it twice on the 3-night. That makes there's no logic that I can come up with to figure out why they did it twice on the 3-night, only once on the 4-night, and the time they picked was the middle of the night.
So we had fireworks 2 nights, but they were both at 10:30.
Well, yeah, that's not helpful.
Yes. And then I was like, why can't you do it like the shows with like the early and the late?
Right.
Yeah. So I think sometimes the entertainment's a little weird at the timing of some of it. On the fantasy, we had some of the extra entertainment, like the buckets and boards guys and maybe a magician, but they were at they were at the same time as the early dinings show.
Oh.
So we couldn't go. And maybe that was by design because they were trying to like thin out crowds. But I was a little disappointed about that. And then we didn't have any extra entertainment on the Dream. So that was kind of a bummer.
It seems like the fantasy is the only, well, that's not true because Marcus is on his way to the Wonder. So he's going to be on the Wonder here now, sailing out of Galveston. But up until now, it's just been the fantasy that's had the extras. How did Jack do in the shows?
He did great.
2-year-old.
So he made him through Frozen. He sat through no problem. Beauty and the Beast, we had seen before. So I was like a little sleepy. He and I were a little sleepy, but he did make it through. Believe he ended up heading out, but I'd say made it through like 75% of it. But this is not always going to be the case. Like we're in a row by ourselves, right? Like there's nobody in front of us. There's nobody behind us. So like if he stood up, like it wasn't that big of a deal. Whereas under a normal circumstance, he's not really going to be able to have that much freedom. So
yeah, if he's in front of me, I'm going to make sure that he, no, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
So if he didn't like sit exactly in his seat and wanted to like stand, one night we were sat at like the railing on like the first part of the upper deck. So
wow, that
was like a perfect seat for him because he could stand up the whole time.
Did you have a favorite song in Believe?
Well, my Leo likes the "What Makes the Garden Grow" song that they sing at the beginning of it. So,
yeah, that was good.
I think it's actually really cute. He really likes the genie, so having the genie be the little host is cute, and I just kind of like seeing all the different songs from all the different movies. So.
I like the fact that they went back a little bit further. I love the Step in Time number that they did.
Yes, the Mary Poppins ones are so good. Yeah, and thanks. I mean, honestly, if Disney Plus didn't exist, like my kids wouldn't know what any of this is, but they've seen basically every Disney movie that's ever existed now. So
anything else that you guys did on the ship that you want to talk about? Otherwise, let's turn to that little island that Christy likes to hang out at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we had on our first cruise was a double dip, which was like the kind of the final straws. Like, how could you pass it up? So we were also off the ship a ton on these cruises. So we had 2 days of Castaway, perfect weather, both days. Nobody, especially the second day on the double dip, people did not get off the ship. Like it was almost eerie how empty it was. Perfect. I like it that way. But yeah, and actually I wrote down, Steve, one of the things that I made a point to do was go to the little lookout that's kind of like between like Family Beach 1 and Family Beach 2. Definitely best view of the ship for sure.
Oh,
Yes.
Steve has a picture of it.
We were just out there. It's a great place to go. If you have time, it's called the Heads Up Bar.
Yes.
You can have a drink with your significant other and enjoy the view of the ships. But obviously, you can bring your kids out there too and get some great pictures.
Yeah. So another pro of bringing a stroller is if your kid is at all inclined to nap in your stroller, I would recommend trying it. So our first day we went back to the ship and he fell asleep on the way back to the ship. And I was like, oh, I should have tried it. And then the next day I tried it and he slept, and I hung out at the Heads Up Bar while my husband and other son did Pelican Plunge. And I was like, this literally couldn't be any better. That was awesome. But we had perfect weather and had the island to ourselves. So it really was the highlight for sure. Did lunch on the island and the food was really good. So all 3 of our Castaway days, the food was really good. We gravitated more towards cookies too. It seemed a little less, even though there weren't a lot of people there, it did seem like it was getting a little backed up with the system, of them having to pass the tray around and all of that. So it did seem like it did take like a little while to get your food. The other thing I will say about going to the buffet and going to Castaway with kids is our strategy was one parent stay at the table, other parent go and get all the food. And the people behind the buffet were like not necessarily like getting this plan. So, I would be like, I need 5 hash browns and lots of sausage and 20 pieces of French toast. And they would just be like, you're crazy. And then I'd be like, and I need 4 plates. And I don't feel like they were like necessarily like understanding what I was doing, which I was like, not a lot of people do this. And then on Castaway it was the same thing.
But yeah, you're not going to take your 2-year-old into the food line.
Right.
Like
and
that's
then,
recipe for disaster.
The little trays for the kids, which are cute, but I'm like, I need this all piled onto one thing because I've got to carry it back. And yeah, so I kind of had to do some explaining there, but I'd still recommend doing that if you can and just kind of grab a little bit of everything and see what they'll eat. So actually my kids, oddly, even though they're picky, like salmon, and we had really good salmon on Castaway one day.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I think of all the private islands we've been to, I'd say Disney probably has the best food.
Well, that's good to hear. So it sounded like Leo was happy going over to Pelican Plunge and doing the slides with your husband. Did Jack have enough things to do? Did you think you needed to bring anything with him to kind of like, play in the sand or anything?
Yeah. So we didn't bring sand toys with us. And we had kind of intended, like with Leo on our first cruise when he was little, we just, bit the bullet and bought them when we got there. And we had intended to do that, but they both do pretty good with like their swim vests on, swimming and playing in the water. So our pattern for all 3 days was we did the family beach, we swam and just kind of played around a little bit. Then they have that like structure out in the water that's not at Pelican Plunge. It's like got like ropes climbing things, but they also just have a side of it where you can climb up and jump off. My kids are kind of daredevils. So because it wasn't busy, we would never have been able to do this on a regular cruise. Jack even climbed up there and jumped off of that like a whole bunch, which was so fun. But it does and I don't know that much about tides or if it was just the kind of time of year we were there, but around lunchtime, it became low tide and that whole thing closes down. So if you're going to do that, do it in the morning. So I probably not something most people are going to do with their 2-year-old, but we were able to do it just because there was nobody else playing on it. And then my husband and Leo went to Pelican Plunge, definitely not long waits and probably went 20 times every day.
I love Pelican Plunge.
Yeah. I did it a couple times and it is fast and you get a lot of salt water in your nose.
Which is why my son hasn't done it yet. He wants nothing to do with that.
Yeah,
there's also a splash pad for babies or littler toddlers, babies on the island, like back.
Yes, we did that on our first day for a couple minutes and, it's fun for like a little while. Yeah, they were all about getting back to the beach. So, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a nice, especially because it's kind of like you can get kind of cleaned off from the sand too.
Yeah.
And it's like squishy.
Right.
The floor is squishy. So if you've got really little ones, I think it's a really good option.
Well, anything else about Castaway Cay then, Jennifer, that we didn't talk about?
I thought it was so cute. So because I had Jack in the stroller, I walked, and my husband and Leo wanted to go on the tram. So they did that, but we got lots of good pictures with the characters at all their little stops. So that was really cute. And then they had a lot of the magic shots. So I don't know if you guys saw these on any of your trips, but they were doing them a lot up on the pool deck, and then they were doing them at Castaway. And so we are really big Moana fans. And on Castaway, they were doing the magic shots with Hey Hey. So we did try to stop for as many of those pictures. We had the photo package on both cruises. So we tried to stop for as many of those pictures as we could.
Well, let's just talk about that real quick. Were you happy with the photo package since you had them from both trips?
Yeah. So I thought so we did not get the photo package back in 2019. We did just buy a handful of pictures, which I thought were really actually bad quality. Like the lighting was awful. And I was like, how can these be professional photographers? But I think the photo package or the photos in general were so much better quality. I heard somebody on here, I think, and a couple other podcasts, like getting like several hundred photos. We were not that ambitious. We got like around 100 both times, but we also have a lot of people we need to get to cooperate that do not cooperate that well for pictures. I thought it's a great value. We bought it in advance both times. So I don't know, it's like 10 or 15 or 20% off if you buy it in advance. We always travel pretty much by ourselves. So we have like no other opportunity to get family photos. So that's an amazing opportunity. And they're doing some really cute stuff now. And they had a lot of photographers around the pool deck. So we have really cute, candid pictures out by the pool deck. And then some of them, they did like Pluto would be in it, or, Donald. And then one thing I didn't even notice till I was showing somebody, they had the photographers coming around on Castaway. So we have some pictures of us in the water, which is fun. And there's like a Mickey Mouse shaped cloud.
Aw.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So somebody like pointed out to me when I was showing them my pictures. They're like, is that real? And I was like, oh no, that's probably one of those magic shot moments. But yeah, so it's definitely worth it for us, because otherwise we would come away with like 4 pictures of our vacation because they're just too busy to take them otherwise.
Did you guys do anything in Nassau, or did you use that as a sea day?
Yeah, we did. So I really deliberated this decision a lot. We didn't want to have another sea day with Jack not being able to go in the pools. So we did end up going on an excursion. We did the Pearl Island excursion. So we went back and forth between that and the Blue Lagoon. This was very kind of extra bubbly in the fact that there are no other, it's this really small island. So you get right off the boat, directly onto the little ferry that takes you over there, right on the cruise dock. And your Disney cruise excursion are the only people there. So I actually emailed the Pearl Island place in advance to make sure it wasn't also open to the public. So I just didn't want it to be too crowded because it's really small. So it's a really small beach. And then they have the chairs and all kinds of stuff like that. They do have kind of a lot of stuff you can do there for free. So you can do kayaks, you can do stand-up paddle boards. They had a ton of sand toys, which was fun. And they were all in really good condition. So my husband kayaked with both boys. We played with the sand toys. Then you have lunch on the island, which was actually very good. They had French fries and chicken fingers and all of that stuff, but they also had fish that was really good and some vegetables and fruit and stuff. They have a bar that's cash bar. So just your activities and your food's included. You can also do a separate excursion, which has snorkeling, but we need all hands on deck. So no adults can separate off to go snorkeling just quite yet. But the snorkeling there is supposed to be really good. It's a pretty ride out. It takes about 30 minutes to get out there. And on the way back, the guy does a little tour and tells you all the famous people houses and, interesting stuff about Nassau. So I was really happy with it. It was about 5 hours long. So we were off the boat for a good amount of time and got another beautiful beach day out of it. So I would recommend.
That sounds really nice.
Yeah. And because Jack I think we're able to do it because he'll take a nap in his stroller. So then I got another hour to hang out and have some drinks in while Dad. Oh, and they had one of those water trampolines.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So it's like a place you can go on an excursion if you're just staying in the Bahamas. So they have a whole website and it looks really nice. So I heard Blue Lagoon is taking groups from all of the ships. So I was getting a little nervous that it was just going to be like too chaotic.
Well, that's good to know for anybody that's going to Nassau coming up here, that Pearl Island is basically the Disney island for that day. We did see the Blue Lagoon shuttle coming in when we were in Nassau, and there was a carnival ship and then there was a celebrity ship in with us, and they kept everybody in a bubble. So like each ferry went out was from each ship, but there were definitely different groups from different ships going out to Blue Lagoon.
Yeah. I hesitate to share my Nassau secret, but if what we really wanted to do, because we actually didn't realize we knew before we went, but when I initially booked, I did not realize that we were not going to be able to get off with the kids unless we were on a Disney excursion, which was fine. But we have been to Nassau before, and we've done a resort for the day at the British Colonial Hilton, and it's super close. You can walk there. You get like a food and beverage credit, and they have a big pool and a really nice beach, and you can see all of the ships. So that's also a really cool thing to do in Nassau if you don't want to do Atlantis, or I think Nassau gets kind of a bad rap.
We had a great time. We got off and just kind of explored the downtown. That's the first time. We've only been there twice. That's all we did. But I guess it's important to note that that it was the British. What was it called?
It's the British Colonial Hilton. It's
important to note that the British Colonial Hilton is closed every time Jennifer and her family are in Nassau. So don't book it then.
Because we've done it before. We're like the only people there. I'm like, this is amazing. There actually are a couple of other resorts on Resort for a Day, but they're all like, that's adults only. So this is one you could bring kids to.
Yeah, I think Nassau is one of those places, like you said, it gets a bad rap. Just it's for people that go someplace over and over and over again. If what you generally do is cruise the dream and it stops in Nassau all the time, I totally understand that, where maybe you kind of get a little bit bored with it. So,
but I think there's not like it's not like going to St. Thomas where there's 10 different beaches you can choose from. You're kind of limited in like your beach day there. I'm really excited to see what the new port looks like, though. It looks like it's going to be pretty nice.
Yeah, it looks pretty amazing as far as the pictures that they had up for the construction when they get it done. Well, let's get you back on the ships and then we'll head you back to Chicago. Anything as far as the last days and getting off the ship as you disembark?
I think like one comment I'll make, this was my husband's thing he wanted to make sure I mentioned. If you are cruising with kids and you like to have a cocktail or especially wine, it's like not that easy to get a drink. And here is why I'll say that. So like there is a bar in the lobby, but the wine list is real short. So if you are kind of looking for something specific, or you already have one of those wines and you don't like it, you pretty much like your only choice is to like hightail it back to the adults only area, which is fine. And it is like adults, it is all ages. Some of that stuff is all ages some of the day. So like, it's not like you can't bring your kids back there. But it's just not that easy. So on our second cruise, we wised up and we brought on our 4 bottles of wine. And that was pretty nice to be able to leave your cabin with a glass of wine on the way to dinner. That's like an adjustment we're trying to make with our cruising as a family. So we're always like, get ready for dinner, go get your drink. And it's not as like, it's just the layout of those ships is just a little more segregated than your typical cruise ship. So your bars are kind of all in a different area.
I would even go to say that your point is very valid in the sense of what you can get if you are a little bit more pickier on your beer selection, your wine selection, or whatever else. Like you said, you can get a lot of stuff in the adult entertainment area. But on the last cruise that we were in, I'm a beer guy, and all that they had on the decks was like Bud Light, which I'm not too excited about. And then they had this like bourbon aged barrel beer, which is like not necessarily I'd love it, but I don't need a gallon of it in my big mug on a hot day. That's not something that most people are kind of craving for. So I think that's a good point, in that your selections tend to be a little bit limited on Disney and some of the bars that they have around the ship.
It's a little bit like that on deck too. I know they do have that one little kind of bar off to the side by the ice cream thing, but they really rely mostly on like people ordering drinks through servers. And if you are chasing after 2 toddlers, like you can't really order a drink from a server because there's no chance I'm going to be standing here when you come back with my drink because you might be back in 1 minute or 10 minutes or whatever. Like I'm not just lounging around. So that would kind of be our tip. And I've kind of been keeping a close eye on the Wish because it does look like some of those bars are going to be more integrated into the lobby area, which I think is really good and kind of makes it feel more like a regular cruise ship.
Yeah, the Star Wars bar, and I think there's another one that's right off the lobby. It looks like it's going to be on the Wish. But I will say that when you cruise on the Magic of the Wonder, that they do have a pretty good bar that's off the lobby there, and they have a better selections than they do in the Dream and the Fantasy. So
there's no midship detective agency, and
there is no midship.
Splash pad is like the size of your bathtub, but you could get a drink, I suppose, on your way to dinner.
Well, you don't need one when you're cruising around the Mediterranean, so you're too busy off the ship. We could go back and forth, and I'm just being a smart aleck a little bit there, but that's a really good point. As we finish up here, Jennifer, it's been a pleasure having you on. Any other things that we haven't talked about, or any other tips that you have for families who are going to be traveling with smaller kids?
I would say make sure you don't miss those open houses at the kids club. Make sure if something says all ages, just go for it. Give it a try. This crew is so great and so geared towards your family that like they're going to make it work for you or make you feel included. You're not going to ever feel like you shouldn't be there with your kids, which is like a huge reason that we keep coming back now. And then the promenade deck is a really great place to run out some energy. So a lot of times we go out there on our way to dinner or on our way to the show, just to make sure you get that last boost of energy out before you have to go sit for a long time. And it's great because it goes all the way around on those ships.
Any other last tips or tricks, Christy, or questions?
My last packing tips, if you're traveling with young kids, is to remember swim diapers if your kids are of swim age, because the Disney cruise usually has like one size and it's never the size your kid would need. Remember those. Plus the Disney cruise swim diapers are like $1 million. So even though you can't take them into the swimming pool, you're still going to want them for the splash pad and for the beach if your child is not potty trained yet. And then remember your kids' medicine when you have kids under the age of 6, because they can't take regular medicine. And like Benadryl, they don't have baby Benadryl on board. And Benadryl is one of those that you even have to ask your doctor, like what the dosage is for tiny little kids. But if your child has an allergic reaction to something, which you might not have known they may have had before leaving for the cruise, because they're going to be eating different things or trying different stuff, then this way you can actually have medication. So when my child was under 3, we used to always just call the doctor and we'd be like, yep, this is his, or we'd email or whatever. This is his weight. What is his Benadryl dosage in case he was to need it during this cruise? And so we always brought that with us. And then just regular medicine like Tylenol and stuff like that for kids. If your kid were to need it on a cruise, they don't always have kid liquid medicine that you might need on cruises these days. So or any days. So I would just make sure you have those with you too.
Yeah. Also overpack on your diapers. Mm-hmm. We did see swim diapers. I did not see a lot of regular diapers. Like I saw like maybe 1 or 2 packages of random sizes. So we always overpack on our diapers. And also my son actually does have a peanut allergy. It's not very severe. And honestly, they were super cognizant and aware of it and very good about, even our waiter would be like, there's like a warning on the cookies, and the chocolate chip cookies in the buffet may contain peanut oil, which I would have never guessed in a million years. So our waiters really kept us informed of like other stuff around the ship that he might not be able to eat.
They're so good with stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Were very good. Actually, at some points I was like, I'm terrible. Like they're more concerned about this than we are, just because it's like hives. It's not, his throat doesn't close up or anything. So it's not like I want him to have it, but it's not the worst case scenario. So.
Well, the question we ask everybody before we finish up is, what's next for you and your family?
Yes, so we are monitoring very closely a Marvel Day at Sea cruise on the Magic at the end of January. But if we do that one, it will probably be very last minute just to see what COVID brings us in the next, vaccine requirements and all of that, especially with like the under 5 set. We're kind of like on this teeter totter of timing now. And our son turns 5 in March. So we're also looking at a double dip on the Wish. That's not a Marvel Day at Sea, but it's in April. So he might be running into that, like whether he could be vaccinated or not. But we have a back-to-back booked on the Wish in September. So
that's exciting.
Very excited about that. So can't wait.
All amazing cruises. So excited for you and your family. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your experiences. I know this is going to help out a lot of our listeners. Unfortunately, we just haven't had as many of these shows. We've got another show planned with good friends of the show, the Hansons, that just got back. They've got some younger kids like you, but do really appreciate the fact that, or we do really appreciate your contribution to helping others cruise a little bit smarter with younger kids.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It was so fun.
And all the best to you and your family as we go into the holiday season. Just enjoy the special moments with them. I know this is always exciting with younger kids. Just enjoy it. And we look forward to having you come back on, whether you go on that Marvel cruise, the double dip with the Wish, or something that isn't even on the radar yet. So all the best to you, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I really want to thank Jennifer for coming on and sharing her and her family's experiences as they sailed on the Disney Dream and Disney Fantasy this last fall. And believe it or not, it is the 1st of February, and Valentine's Day is right around the corner. For all of you who are planning cruises over Valentine's Day, we want to wish you all the best as you set sail on the high seas with Disney Cruise Line. In addition, if you've enjoyed this podcast and know others who would enjoy it, we sure would appreciate it if you'd pass it on. That helps us get the word out of the Disney cruising, and just the Disney community in general. As always, we'd like to thank our Patreon supporters who help bring this show to you each and every week without any type of in-show advertisements. If you'd like to learn how to support our show, you can go over to patreon.com/DCL podcast and find out all the information there. We'd also like to give a huge shout out to each and every one of you who've taken the time recently to go over to iTunes and leave us a review. That helps us also get the show known a little bit better in the Disney cruising, and the Disney podcasting world in general. Well, between now and our next show, if you're heading out on the high seas with Disney Cruise Line, heading down to Walt Disney World, Disneyland, or on an adventure with Adventures by Disney, or just getting ready to run Princess Weekend, on behalf of myself, Steve, Christy, and Chris, all of us here at the DCL Podcast, we want to wish you and your family be well, enjoy time with each other, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.